So after Michael and I did this article, and one of the interesting things is that Michael is younger than I am, and he's on social media a lot. And this is an article that was in the online journal Ed Policy Analysis Archives out of Arizona State. And so Michael put this article out in his social media, and the editor of the journal emailed me and said, "Oh my God, your article has like 2,000 hits in a week." And I'm like, my work never gets read. I don't know what's going on. Well, it turns out, I think, that there was just a lot of kind of going viral on social media, you know, which is another thing that we need to consider and do a better job of, is how to get our work out, not only to other academics, but other broader. And actually, your dean, Julie Underwood, was saying that the work she did on ALEC, she wrote a piece for the school board journal that went viral among the school board folks all over the country. And you know, that would be, you know, like my proudest moment, really, you know, to have a different audience reading my work, right? Not academics, but non-academics. And I did do some stuff on militarization in high schools a while back, and some folks at a counter-recruiting, you know, organization, so they were all saying, "Oh yeah, everybody's reading your article in the counter-recruiting community," you know. So those are the moments that I feel most successful as a researcher, actually. So in this follow-up to this article, I wanted to go back to some of the debates of the 1970s around research dissemination and the different views of how research impacts policy or doesn't impact policy, because these debates are not new, obviously. They've been going on for a long time. Now, we all know that traditionally this is a kind of model that I think is still fairly relevant. This is the notion of knowledge creation, which tends to be in universities, although not so much anymore, just in universities, right? Knowledge dissemination, the idea is you do a study, you disseminate it through a journal, hopefully also maybe a practitioner journal. So you write an article for an academic journal, then you do a version for Phi Delta Kappan or something. That's ideally, but maybe with the pressures on tenure now, maybe skip that step, because it doesn't count. Presented at conferences, give workshops, and increasingly dissemination is done through consultancies now that go into schools and districts. Knowledge utilization is the third part, where the knowledge gets utilized, right? We have now this data utilization kind of work. And this whole concept of, I was kind of depressed to see that notion of data utilization terminology again, because it's so clunky in terms of how knowledge actually, you know, seeps into practice, right? It's like it's utilized, right? That's not theoretically a very powerful concept. In practice and policy. So we've had these debates for 30 or 40 years on policy implementation, utilization, about why teachers won't use our research, why teachers are resistant to policies that they're expected to utilize, implement, and so forth. And you know, probably some of the best of that literature, and I have to say, you know, we really have learned a lot about effective policy implementation over the years that has largely been ignored by our current reform projects, which don't make much attempt to engage in mutual adaptation, as Milby, McLaughlin, and others pointed out back in the 70s and 80s, that typically for successful policies to be implemented, there has to be some mutual adaptation between the policy itself and the user of the policy. Both have to be somehow kind of adapted. But now with the new gold standard of experimentation and so forth, now things are supposed to be implemented exactly as they were in the experimental studies, and therefore we now have this new term of fidelity, right? It has to be implemented a certain way. So we're kind of went 30 years back, forgot everything we learned about implementation, and we're kind of back to square one.